Hey everyone. This video is basically you can pretty much skip the entire thing because it really just results in the simple conclusion that too much social media is bad. It's not a very profound conclusion, but what I'm going to talk about is pretty. I don't know. It might seem far-fetched, and I'm reaching to connect these stories that I'm going to share to AI, but it's been coming up lately mainly because I've kind of lost. Just to quickly say, I am going through, I don't know, the so-called dark night, I guess, the past few months, and I've attempted many times to make a video on it. It's just not the time yet. And in fact, I made one a couple of weeks ago, and shared what I'm going to talk about here in that video. But that video was all over the place. And then ultimately, at the end, after I finally finished it and finally edited it, the file got corrupt, and I couldn't even open it. So talking about AI and how it messes with things, that's one instance right there. But, going through this Dark Knight thing, I kind of lost trust in a lot, and I'm getting fed up, especially with the synchronicities. It's just like, what's the point? Like, I've been having a very negative attitude on it all. And when these synchronicities are coming out like crazy, just over the top synchronicities, and it's just like stop. I just get fed up with it, and there's no point. And so that's the negative attitude I've had on them the past few months. And then when I get really specific things occur as far as messages that I get, if you think that I'm kind of it's a stretch for me to connect this to AI. I'm just trying to share my perspective as far as where I'm coming from and why I'm doing it. But ultimately, it leads to that conclusion that too much social media is bad. So, which everybody knows, too much of really anything can be viewed as bad. And from my perspective, I've given up a lot of addictions over the past few years, but the one thing that has stuck around is just watching way too many videos. I work from home, so I just have the TV on with just video after video, just watching. It's just way too much, and it starts to kind of mess with you. It messes with your head. In my case, it messes with my spiritual mind frame, and that's kind of a couple of the stories that I'm going to share that, from my perspective, really show a connection between this social media type AI that is being built and the AI of the overarching matrix type world that we're in. No matter how you view that, it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, it's all connected anyways. It's all energy. It's all connected in this perceived world through our eyes. So it really doesn't matter how you view that part of it. So I won't really get too much into that. And no matter how, far the manipulation goes, ultimately it all comes from source anyways. So there's always that underlying trust. The perspective I'm sharing here, though, is when I really had a lack of trust in it, and it led me in this direction, which I'm grateful for. So let's just get into it. The first story basically is a meditation I had a couple weeks after I started getting into this dark night of the soul. So this happened a few months ago, and I was really, really deep into a meditation, and I got a message, and what my guides said to me was always up here to help Lena. And it didn't come one after another. I tend to get very combative whenever I receive messages, and especially during this time frame when I was at a very, very low point. So when they first told me always up here, I immediately get an attitude with them. And now, I think I'm doing it in a funny way. I'm not really that pissed off, but there is a little frustration there and it's not necessarily that I'm pushing back on the message itself. I'm more so pushing back on the fact that I'm even receiving a message. And I don't necessarily know why, but I just do. So yeah, I kind of push back, like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And then they followed that up with always up here to help. And, that's not anything too profound. You can kind of come to your conclusions on what that means. But I still pushed back a little bit. And then they said, help Lena. And that's when I just laughed and really started pushing back because it's just like, great, a message that I know nothing what to do with. And like, it just provides me nothing. I really felt like I was in Field of Dreams or something where he's hearing these voices and he starts getting pissed off and like asking like, who is this person? How do I help? That's exactly how I felt. I've never heard of this. I don't want to say I've never heard of the name. I don't think I've heard of the name. But that said, when I heard it, I recognized it as a name at least. But I've certainly never known anybody with this name. It's not a name that I would have come up with in my head. So when they told me this, how in the world could I help this person? Who is this person? How do I find this person? And it's just, just one of those over the top messages where it's like, it just leaves me frustrated. So I got out of the meditation. I wrote it down. I wrote the whole message down. Always up here to help Lena. And I just left it at that. There's nothing I could do with that last part. So I just left it for what it was, and I wrote it down, like I said, and I also took a picture of it just to kind of show for something in case I needed it as proof or something. So I just left it as it was. And seriously, it was 2 days later. I'm scrolling on my phone on YouTube, and a video pops up from someone I've never seen before, just asking for help. With depression, and with this AI stuff, you can blame things on algorithms and things like that. But I am not a depressed person. At least long-term depression is never something, luckily, that I've had to deal with ever. And I've certainly never watched any videos on depression. So this is the first time a video like that has popped up for me. And it was, I don't know, I felt this pull to watch it. So I clicked on it. And about halfway through the video, I'm telling you, I knew 100% that this person was Lena. I knew it. And I found out later that her name was Alina. So I just got the message as Lena. Her name was Alina. And it's just, it's one of those things. It gave me chills at the time. Just the whole deal, the whole getting that message in the meditation. 2 days later, some random person popping up on social media by that name. Not only that, but when I was watching the video, I knew it was her. I had no doubt in my mind. How? How would I know that? So that's where I don't know, the frustration comes in because in one way it's like, that from my perspective, that's a really special thing, magical, I guess. But at the same time, I was really not feeling good. And it's like, man, if something this profound happens and I don't give a shit, like I don't, like it doesn't mean anything to me. It doesn't prove anything. Who cares? It's pointless, right? It just hit me in a different way. And so that's where just wasn't trusting it because it was too much to me. And that's when I started connecting it to AI, right? Like I am watching way too much YouTube specifically, and now I get this spiritual message in the meditation that 2 days later I see on YouTube. And not only that, the video was posted 2 days before I saw it. So it was posted probably around the same time I had that meditation. And so that's where that connection comes in. And it makes me not trust it. Now, I didn't necessarily feel untrusting. I mean, I did, but I didn't really connect it to AI at that specific time. I was actually kind of excited. I was like, oh, this is interesting. How do I help this person? And I didn't know how because I mean, she was specifically asking for someone with depression. Couldn't do it in that way. I said a few supporting comments. Who knows? I'm not really anybody who likes to give advice. I just don't do it. So however that played out or plays out, so be it. But as time went on, I'm like, man, that's where the AI thing is like, man, how manipulative is it? Like, why is it? How connected is it to this Matrix AI? hence possibly the spiritual messages that I'm getting, just my own viewpoint of this world, right? Just leaving me very even more confused what during this time frame. And of course, when you're in these lower energies, that's the best time for these manipulations, the AI manipulations to kind of get a hold of you. And also with any addiction, why are you doing it? What are you distracting yourself from? Like I said, I gave up pretty much all of my addictions except for this. And it's almost like social media came in big time to basically replace all the other stuff that I gave up, and I didn't really fully recognize what I was using it to distract myself from. So all of this, even though this may sound negative, and I was in a pretty negative mind frame, it was all very helpful to really put a spotlight on these things for me. And it's crazy how confused I was and how I was trying so hard to get an answer on was this being manipulated? Can I trust anything anymore? When all of that doesn't even matter. The simple conclusion is just back off AI. Just get away from it. Understanding that it's not all bad, of course not, but you're overdoing it and just stop. And then that solves, that really solves it all. And I have finally stopped. It's one of those things that's been on my mind for years at this point, and it took something this ridiculous to finally stop it. So as negative as I have been, I don't know how I've been sounding during this video, but it's all led to something good. I do want to share another story, another example of this. This happened in October of 2022, and I was still at that time, of course, still watching way too much YouTube. So I went on YouTube and was searching for Carl Jung because I really hadn't read any of his material. I've seen a few things on him, but I just kind of wanted to learn a little bit more. And again, I watch YouTube on my TV, so I'm just flipping through. I come across this channel when I search for him, and the channel had a list of philosophers and authors. And I'm scrolling down until I get to Carl Jung, but when I get to him, right underneath him is Dostoevsky. And I hadn't thought about him in a while, but my favorite book is called The Brothers Karamazov, and I read that close to 20 years ago. But it hit me that I couldn't remember a single thing from that book. I know it's my favorite book, but I couldn't remember anything. And I've touched on how bad my memory is in other videos, but it was crazy. I was thinking so hard, and I was like, wow, I cannot remember. I don't remember the plot. Don't remember anything. All I know is that I liked the ideas that were discussed in it, the philosophies, but I couldn't remember any of them. So I was like thinking, oh man, I got to, of course, need to read it again to see what my perspective on it is at this point, 20 years later. So yeah, I just left it at that, and that was it. Now, the only person who I've really ever discussed this book with was my ex-wife. So I was married 12 years ago, and we got divorced about 7 years ago. And I'd say we're on good terms. We're fine. We don't really communicate though. Maybe a text once a year just to kind of keep in touch. But she's really the only one that I've discussed that book with. I think we were living together before we got married, and she knew it was my favorite book, so she wanted to read it. And it's over 1,000 pages, so it's a long read. And I think I joined her and I read Atlas Shrugged, which is also a very long book. And we just kind of read those books at the same time and discussed them a little bit, and that was pretty much it. And really hadn't talked about it after that initial point. So back into the story I was telling back in October of 2022 when I came across this on YouTube. After I had that thought, oh, and I need to read that book again. 2 days later, my ex-wife sends me a picture of that book, saying she's going to dive into this again. I mean, if that's impossible. We don't text, like I said, once a year, maybe. Very short, quick communication, keep in touch. That's pretty much it. For her to send me this text right after I search and find that on YouTube and have that exact same thought, and not only send me a text, but send me a picture of that exact book is impossible in my mind. And now at the time, this was a while ago, so I wasn't necessarily, well, I kind of was thinking AI. I do because listen, I've had so many weird things where you can just think of something and then it pops up somewhere. It's just insane how it's all connected. So, but again, like there's different viewpoints on that. We're all connected. Maybe she just felt the energy in a different way. But I'll just say this, and I don't want to get too deep into it. I don't want to get into anything too personal here. I'll just simply say there was more that followed that made the interaction just a little bit off. And the whole basis of it all just seemed artificial, honestly. It just seemed artificial and manipulated at that point, and it was just very, very strange to like almost obviously strange how that communication occurred. So that's just another example. Again, you may view that as a stretch as I'm connecting those two, but in my mind, I'm certain of it. So yeah, that's that. Now, just to end this on a more uplifting note, and this is just a story that actually just happened yesterday, and it is not really AI related, but it does tie into the message I received about helping Lena. And so at this point, yesterday, or last night, so it's really just been maybe a couple weeks of giving up watching as much online videos that I have in the past. Now I have, like I said, I usually watch it on my TVs. I basically got rid of all my TVs except one. I have one TV left in my room that's designated as my like gym and workout area. So while I work out, I'll watch some YouTube videos on my TV. So I'll limit it to about an hour a day or so, and that's been going on for the past couple weeks. So I've finally done that. That's great. And, I've explained in other videos, I have a big issue with social anxiety. I think the whole watching YouTube videos is a distraction from facing that. And yesterday I went to an event, a kind of a spiritual retreat type thing in my area. I'm not good with those things. Not those things. I'm not judging anything. I'm just saying I'm not good with any type of social interaction. I always just feel very, very awkward. And I'm going there without knowing anybody except one person, and she's really the person who kind of let me know about it. She actually let me know about it last year, which was the first time it occurred. And I went last year, and I stayed for like a couple hours and then left. I really wussed out. So this year I stayed for about 6 or 7 hours or so. So at least more. And there are different kind of little events during it. There's about maybe I don't even know how many people, 50 to 100. That's a wide range, but I'm not really sure exactly. And it was nice. It was when I showed up, I immediately joined this group that was doing a breathwork session, and the breathwork is wonderful if you guys ever do it. Really, the deep breathing. I've done it a few times, and people react to it differently. I get like a form of paralysis, like I can't move when I breathe that deeply for so long, and it really, really brings up some deep emotions. And this was the first time, so I've done it just on my couch at home, and have had that interaction. But doing it with a group of people was kind of a very much deeper experience. So it was a really good thing. And then it was on this land with natural springs, and I don't know, it was overall a good experience. One really interesting thing is just more of me kind of just being a little bit more calm in these situations. I'm a very calm person on my own, and I'm on my own pretty much all the time. But in these situations, my mind's just racing, and I can't really focus on anything. Always feel like there's a million eyes on me, and it's just kind of crazy. And we were doing a cacao ceremony, and again, just kind of sitting there by myself in a group of people, and they are doing someone singing a song. We each have our cup of cacao, and it was a little noisy. Like there's someone singing, and there were some instruments playing, but there was a lot of chatter in the group. And I wasn't talking, so that, everyone's talking with each other, and I'm just sitting there by myself. And I all of a sudden just close my eyes and just kind of meditate, just kind of fall into my heart, just in the middle of the so-called chaos as far as my mind was concerned in the moment. And this was so unbelievable to me. But seriously, 5 to 10 seconds after I closed my eyes, everyone became silent. We're talking about close to 100 people. Everyone became silent, and the only thing that was heard was the singing and the instruments. And I'm not saying I had this this power to do this, okay? But it happened. And I just, sat deep in the meditation, just listening for the next few minutes. And it was just an unbelievable, peaceful quietness that just overtook everybody. And I eventually opened my eyes. And then after I opened my eyes, the song kind of ended and people started talking again. And they did it again, maybe 10 to 15 minutes later. And again, there was a lot of chatter, a lot of talk. And I wasn't timing this with songs. I think when I say they did it again, it was like kind of nonstop, someone singing pretty much the entire time. But I did it again where I just closed my eyes and went into a meditation. And once again, within 10 to 15 seconds, everyone just became quiet. And I you can call it a coincidence. I have no idea. But that hit me pretty hard. Again, I'm not saying that I have this power to to control anybody, and it could be a mix of both. Maybe when my eyes were open and I'm looking around, I'm hearing this, chatter in my head and through others, and then just zoning in. It kind of quiets everything. But I know for a fact that everyone became pretty silent at that moment, at those moments. So for me, it was really, really profound. But anyways, to get to the point that I'm trying to get to here. So at the end of the evening, into the night, there was music being played, and there were people doing, ecstatic dancing, which, you know, I went to it, I sat and I swayed. I stood up occasionally and kind of did my own little form of dancing, if you can call it dancing. I'm not sure. Felt very, very awkward, but at the same time, it's okay. I at least attempted it. Made a very small step. But aside from that, um, as I was sitting, someone came up to me and said I looked familiar, and said something about. She asked me if I had gone to a yoga studio or something, which I hadn't. Although interestingly, I had just signed up and attended my first yoga class that same morning, yesterday morning. So it was kind of a interesting synchronicity there. However, what she was talking about, I wasn't familiar with, so I don't believe I had ever met her. But she introduces herself and she tells me her name's Alina. And honestly, I didn't even connect that that was her name. I was because I'm so in my head socially that I it's hard for me. Like I heard it, I listen, but I'm so wound up as far as what I'm going to say that I don't truly like. I'm not listening freely and just comfortably. So it didn't even hit me that that was her name. And she ended up being one of the facilitators, meaning she did a painting session at this during this retreat, which I wasn't aware of. And I'm also trying to get into art. So there's a little bit of a correlation there. But, anyways, it didn't hit me that was her name until after I left. So I looked it up just on the retreat details just to confirm that that was her name and that I wasn't, mistaken or didn't hear it correctly. And it was, her name was Alina. And not only that, but when I got the message in my meditation, I got it as Lena. And when I wrote it down, though, I wrote it, you could spell Lena with an I or with an E. And I spelled it a certain way. And the person I came across on YouTube was spelled the opposite way that I spelled it. But I was thinking, well, it doesn't really matter. I didn't necessarily see how it was spelled in my meditation. I just wrote it down that way afterwards. But that said, this person was spelled the way that I spelled it. So, you know, again, I'm not saying that anything means anything. There's going to be some ultimate reason for all of this. But what I do want to mention is the fact that this led this all of this weirdness led me to something. It led me to dropping something that I've been trying to for a while now, and then that then led me to actually interact with people, even though technically I was going to anyways, but it still all lines up at the same time. And by interacting with people, now I actually truly meet a real person face to face with this name. Um, and again, how can I help her? I have no idea. Maybe I don't need to. Maybe I do. Doesn't really matter. Will I ever even see her again? Maybe, maybe not. I have no idea. And I don't need to know. It's all just happening how it's happening. And my trust has been shaken over the past few months, but it's slowly coming back. No, and even though it was shaken, it there's always that underlying trust. It's just really doubts can creep in, and it's really hard to access it sometimes, to access and truly feel that trust. But it's coming back. But that's on the next video, or if I ever do make a video on the whole Dark Knight thing. And whenever I do make that video, it's not necessarily about anything that happened because nothing really happened, honestly. It was more what I'm going to talk about is more what resulted from it. And this was one of them. This is one of the many things. But and the other thing is, obviously, I started making these videos during this time period. So there's so many beneficial things I've experienced over the past few months, and that's really what I'll be making that video about once I get to it. But anyways, thanks for watching, everybody. All right, see ya.